Today, the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee will conduct oversight and receive testimony on the importance of access to alternative therapies and treatments for veterans struggling with mental health conditions. It is a huge problem. Today, we will hear directly from the Department of Veterans Affairs researchers in the field and veterans with personal experience. Thank you all to all the witnesses for coming to my home state of Alabama, where more than 400,000 veterans call home. And thank you to Chairman Moran for allowing me to hold this hearing today. He's the chairman of the Armed Services Committee in Washington, D.C. The room we are sitting in today may look familiar, but no, we're not here in the White House. It is pretty, though. Looks nice. We're sitting in a replica of the East Room of the White House in Montevallo, Alabama, the American Village. American Village is leading the way in educating generations of Alabamians and Americans on the founding of our great nation. American Village has also been designated and dedicated as a veteran's living legacy and sits on the same grounds as the Alabama National Cemetery. I cannot think of a better location for today's hearing. Unfortunately, what we're here to discuss is not new. We lose an average of 18 veterans a day to suicide. Think about that, 18 veterans a day. And our veteran class is growing because of all these 20-year wars that we've been fighting over the last few years. We cannot sit back while those who put their lives on the line for our great nation suffer day in and day out. We have a lot of suffering. We're in a race against time. One life lost is way too many. Our veterans deserve access to innovative critical life-saving therapies and treatment. Over the last 2 decades, the VA has added many evidence-based therapies to better care for the mental health of our veterans. And in many of these cases, veterans will see an improvement in their mental health within weeks and months after using one of these therapies. I applaud the work being done by the VA, but there is still a lot more that we have to do. That's why earlier this year I introduced the HBOT Access Act. This bill would simply require the VA to provide hyperbaric oxygen therapy, or HBOT, as a treatment option to any veteran who is suffering from PTSD or TBI who has already tried no less than 2 evidence-based treatment options. HBOT is one of many therapies we will hear about here today. States across the nation are also introducing their own pieces of legislation to expand access or to fund alternative treatment options for our veterans. I'm eager to hear how the VA is working to study and provide access to treatments outside of medications such as opioids, antidepressants, traditional psychotherapy. Last December, for the first time since the 1960s, VA has announced that it would fund a study on MDMA-assisted therapy for PTSD and alcohol use disorders, the first time. And to date, the VA has sponsored 11 clinical trials for evidence-based psychedelic-assisted psychotherapies. VA Secretary Doug Collins said himself that the VA is continuing to look at new alternative treatments. As a member of this committee, I look forward to working with him and get this done. I'm confident that under leadership of Secretary Collins, Secretary Kennedy, and President Trump, we will see generational change at the VA for our veterans struggling with their mental health. So, today we will have 5-minute opening statements from our witnesses. We have 2 witness groups. First, I'd like to introduce Dr. Al Witcher. Is that close enough?
It's Weekers.
Weekers.
Yes.
There you go.
Sir.
Dr. Weekers is currently serving as the Deputy Executive Director for the Office of Mental Health at the Veterans Health Administration at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. In this role, Dr. Weekers oversees the timely development and implementation of policies and programs to ensure veterans-centered, evidence-based, and high-quality mental health services to over 2 million veterans annually. She leads OMH's legislative policy and partnership work, engaging regularly with key congressional and veteran service organizations, stakeholders. Dr. Wiechers is practicing board-certified adult and geriatric psychiatric who completed her medical education at Duke, residency at MGH and McLean Hospitals, and fellowship at Yale. At Yale, she received a master's degree in public policy from Duke and a master's degree in health science from Yale University. She also serves as faculty at University of California, San Francisco, and Yale. Thanks for traveling here today, Doctor, and a distinguished fellow of the American Association of Geriatric Psychiatry and the American Psychiatric Association, and has been elected to the membership of the American College of Psychiatrists. Then we have Dr. Myram Smith. Is that right? I want to try to get as close as possible. It's not as bad as Tuberville, I can promise you that. Doctor is also accompanied by Myron Smith, Acting Director of Bryan Behavioral and Mental Health Board Portfolio at the Office of Research and Development at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. She focuses on advancing precision medical health care within the VA and conducting research into high priority areas such as post-traumatic stress disorder and depression. Dr. Smith has also overseen a program of $105 million in clinical research funding and approximately 430 ongoing research projects to improve veterans' health and well-being, and serving as ORD's Clinical Research and Development Service Acting Director since March of 2022. Dr. Smith has initiated many high-visibility national projects and advanced ORD's goals, particularly in the area of precision mental health and emerging therapies. She leads the PTSD pharmaceutically, how you pronounce that?
Psychopharmacology.
Okay, good. All right, we're going to have a lot of that today. Initiative, and has worked to advance research on the use of psychedelics, cannabis, and transcranial magnetic stimulation to treat mental health conditions that are resistant to today's first-line approaches. She recently led ORD efforts to issue VA's first request for application in psychedelic research to treat veterans' mental health conditions, and she has co-authored research and implementation of psychedelic-assisted therapy in the Veterans Health Administration, published in the American Journal of Psychiatry in January of 2023. So we're here today to try to find answers. Folks, we have a lot of people in trouble. In my 5 years in the Senate, I've never seen a problem like this that continues to grow, get bigger, and it's only going to get bigger. And so we're here today with two experts that can hopefully give us some answers on what they've studied and what they've seen. So, Dr. Richards, can you walk me through the process?
Opening statements first.
Pardon?
Opening statements first.
Oh, opening statements. All right. So we'll do 5-minute opening statements with each witness. Doctor, please.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Senator Tuberville, and to everyone here today. Thank you for allowing us to discuss new effective ways to care for our nation's heroes. I'm Dr. Ilsa Wiechers, Deputy Executive Director of VA Office of Mental Health, and alongside me is Dr. Miriam Smith, Executive Director of the Brain, Behavioral, and Mental Health Portfolio within Office of Research and Development. Today, I will discuss VA's research and clinical efforts in emerging therapies, including psychedelic-assisted therapy and hyperbaric oxygen therapy, or HBOT, as well as other innovative treatments. VA operates the largest integrated health system in the United States, providing comprehensive services to over 9 million enrolled veterans annually. Our mission centers on caring for those who have borne the battle, their families, and caregivers. Mental health care is crucial, which is why we continuously strive to support a robust clinical and research program focused on improving mental health outcomes for veterans. While current evidence-based treatments such as prolonged exposure therapy, cognitive processing therapy, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, and medications help many, approximately 1/3 of veterans with PTSD or major depression do not find relief. This is what has driven our commitment to researching and implementing innovative therapies that may offer significant benefit to veterans. VA is exploring the therapeutic potential of psychedelic compounds like MDMA and psilocybin. As of July 2025, we have 12 clinical research studies in psychedelic treatments for mental health conditions at 9 VA medical centers, studying MDMA, psilocybin, DMT, and LSD, focusing on PTSD, major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, and substance use disorders. This fiscal year, VA announced funding for a study on MDMA-assisted therapy for PTSD and alcohol use disorder among veterans. This trial will be taking place at the Providence VA Medical Center. All studies comply with federal guidelines for clinical research and use of controlled substances, while gathering scientific evidence regarding the efficacy and safety of these compounds when combined with psychotherapy. These therapies remain investigational, and it is important to not self-medicate with psychedelics outside of a clinical research setting, as doing so can carry significant risks. Although HBOT is recognized for conditions like decompression sickness and wound healing, the FDA has not authorized it for use with PTSD or TBI treatment. VA and DoD clinical practice guidelines found insufficient evidence to recommend HBOT for PTSD and strongly recommend against its use for mild TBI. Published results of scientifically rigorous VA and DoD research on TBI have repeatedly shown that HBOT has the same impact as a placebo and no clinically relevant long-term effects. In addition to the lack of patient improvement, the use of HBOT after a mild TBI may have harmful impacts, including seizures. VA continues to closely monitor the research on HBOT, and none of the recently published studies have changed our recommendations at this time. Beyond psychedelics and HBOT, VA evaluates other innovative treatments to address difficult-to-treat mental health conditions. For example, I helped lead the national rollout of ketamine and S-ketamine treatments for treatment-resistant depression, and I continue to be a practicing psychiatrist providing ketamine infusions to veterans each week. As scientific evidence evolved, these treatments were incorporated into the recommendations in the 2022 VA-DoD Clinical Practice Guideline for Major Depression. VA has gone from 8 facilities offering these treatments 10 years ago to now offering them in 49 facilities across the country. Another example is stellate ganglion block, which involves injecting local anesthetic into a cluster of nerve cell bodies in the neck. Although promising, there is insufficient evidence from current research to recommend SGB as a standard clinical treatment for PTSD. However, VA is supporting ongoing studies at VA facilities to clarify its potential benefits and determine its efficacy in treating PTSD among veterans. While VA's research efforts continue, veterans will receive the mental health care and support that they need, whenever and wherever they need it. Our proven evidence-based care options for veterans experiencing PTSD or depression include mental health care at our VA facilities, assistance with reintegration into their communities, counseling at vet centers across America, 24/7 access to qualified crisis responders at the Veterans Crisis Line, emergent suicide care for veterans at any VA or non-VA facility at VA expense, and much, much more. In conclusion, VA is committed to continuing to research and to advance the science behind emerging therapies and ensuring their safe, effective integration into mental health care through rigorous scientific evaluation. We will ensure new therapies undergo thorough testing and peer review for safety and effectiveness, tailored to meet our veterans' unique needs. By exploring and integrating innovative therapies, we aim to leave no veteran behind. We appreciate the committee's support in this shared mission. My colleague and I are ready to respond to any questions you may have.
Thank you. And as we do these, I've got about 10, 12 questions. We'll start with you. Doctor, if you want to add anything to that, or if you don't, fine. But let's get as much information as we possibly can. I think it would be good. So if we're rolling out a new therapy, such we are quite often, what's the process? How do we do that? How does that work? How do we roll a process out of doing a new drug or a new therapy, to help veterans?
Sure, thank you for that question, Senator. I think I'll use as an example our rollout of S-ketamine or Spravato, which was FDA approved in March of 2019. It required a different way to think about the time spent in a clinic, because there was a requirement for people after the dosing, which is an intranasal dosing, to stay for monitoring for 2 hours. And that's not what a typical mental health clinic visit looks like. So we developed a national protocol We met with folks who were using similar agents like ketamine and learned from them by learning about best practices. We created a community of practice that was nationwide, and everyone learned from one another together as we rolled out our national protocols. We went to our folks with research experience in that area with that type of agent, and they were our first sites to implement clinically, and then we learned from them and rolled out to kind of in phases to the next level, and that is how we kind of in a phased approach, learning each phase kind of in an iterative way so that we learn lessons before we roll things out more broadly.
Yeah. Ms. Smith, you want to add anything to that? Would you like?
No,
That's
thank
good.
you, Senator.
Okay. So do you have to work directly with the FDA when you want to bring out a new drug, or is it a drug already tested and they're allowing you to test it on veterans? How does that work?
So in terms of studying drugs that are still investigational, I will actually defer to Dr. Smith to say a little bit about how our researchers work with investigational drugs.
Okay.
So we have quite a bit of experience with this, Senator, because we began working with Schedule I drugs in 2017, which involved cannabis. And so our researchers have to get FDA approval and have to get a license from the DEA, and then they have to go through various regulatory steps, including institutional review boards. So the process is very well defined and is working for us.
Good. Thank you. What's the biggest challenges the VA faces in terms of implementing, these new programs for veterans? What's your biggest challenge? What do you have to fight? Because it seems like every time we do something for the veterans, it's almost a fist fight to get something done. Nobody wants to approve anything. Doctor?
Thank you for the question, sir. I think one of the biggest challenges is just change. Change is hard, especially if a change in practice is asking our providers to do something they've never done before. So I think just the efforts to educate and ensure everyone has the information they need about a new treatment or a new type of service that we're delivering. So I think educating and informing everyone and getting everyone's buy-in to help move things along as we innovate and implement new things.
There's had to be some experience, though, from some of these drugs used not on veterans but just average citizens, correct? I mean, do y'all use that experience from what they've learned from some of these other programs to try to help people with other mental disorders?
So thank you. Sure, we certainly learn a lot from the scientific literature studying kind of a community or general population, but the veterans using Veterans Health Administration services are unique in many ways, and that's one of the reasons why we want to ensure that we have studies and scientific study of that population specifically to make sure that, number one, it's safe in that population, because a lot of our veteran population have significant mental health burden as well as substance use disorder and lots of medical conditions as well, more so than the general population. And so first, to ensure its safety in our veteran population, and second, to ensure that it's as effective in the veteran population as it is in the general community population. So that's one of the reasons why we like to see scientific evidence that supports its use in the veteran population specifically.
Yeah, and if you have people here today and we have veterans that will watch this online, it's a sense of urgency. Sometimes we don't feel a sense of urgency because people are dying every day. I know we have somebody every month that dies of suicide from PTSD that's a veteran. And I know we want to do the right things, but we also need to feel that sense of urgency, How does the VA track the success? How do we... when something good happens, how do we assess that across the country when it's being used?
So thank you, sir, for that question. We actually have a really robust set of, at least in mental health that I'll speak to, a robust set of metrics and measurements that we're tracking that look at outcome, that look at access, that look at utilization of services, that really help us in real time identify how veterans are doing and how individual health systems are doing across the nation. And so we have lots and lots of data at the VA, actually, which is one of the benefits of being at the VA is we've got a really robust data set that allows us to learn from the health system in a robust way, in addition to what we learn from the scientific studies that we do in the research side of the house. So we can learn things as a clinical system, and we are a learning health system. It allows us to kind of evolve as we go.
And I think it's so important that we pass that information on down. I know in 5 years we've spent tens of billions of dollars in the VA, and we still haven't been successful of really getting just information from the DOD to the VA. I mean, because different servers on each end. Communication is the key to anything. I think we all know that. And so if we're going to study drugs and study therapies, you know, we need to do it as quick as we possibly can, but do it the right way. What criteria does the VA use to approve these new therapies? What list do you go down to approve these?
So in speaking about pharmaceuticals,
Anything. You know, is there a grocery list that we have to go through from start to finish to approve a drug for a veteran to use?
So there's not a list per se, but there is an existing process with our Pharmacy Benefits Management National Formulary that whenever a new drug is approved by FDA, it kind of starts automatically this standard process of review that the National Formulary team undertakes. And that has a group of experts from across the country that review the data that the FDA reviewed, that review data about safety and efficacy in the veteran population specifically, and then make determinations about the availability of it and if there are certain criteria that we will utilize inside VA for who is eligible for receiving that medication.
Do veterans get to sign up for these experiments? How does that work? When you have a new therapy that you want to try, how do they find people to try it on? I mean, it's got to be used somehow to see if it works. How does that work?
So I'll defer to Dr. Smith to say a little bit about recruitment for VA research studies.
So, Senator, I will say that veterans as a group have been remarkably generous to each other. They are just, it's just phenomenal how willing they are to sign up for clinical trials and how willing they have been to join our Million Veteran program, which actually hit the enrollment of 1 million veterans this past fall. So we offer opportunities for veterans to join clinical trials, and again, they sign up.
Good, thank you. Doctor, your testimony, you mentioned ketamine?
Ketamine, yes.
Ketamine and
S-ketamine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good. I couldn't pronounce nor spell it. As emerging therapies at the VA, how is this therapy administered to the veteran, and what does it look like?
Sure. So ketamine infusions are very similar to any other kind of infusion clinic. So, for example, if you've been to an infusion clinic for chemotherapy, it oftentimes will look similar to that. The one where I practice in San Francisco has 4 bays with recliner chairs and IV poles and blood pressure cuffs and pulse ox machines. And so each veteran will come in and have a seat. They talk with you first to check in and see how things are going. A nurse will start an IV. And then for about 40 to maybe 50 minutes, the medication is infused through that IV. And then they rest afterwards for a little bit. We check in after, and then they head home. And that is what a ketamine infusion treatment looks like. So in total, they're probably in the clinic for about 90 minutes to 2 hours. Intranasal S-ketamine is kind of like your allergy medication that you use, and it's self-administered same way, so you squeeze and inhale. Oftentimes our clinics look similar to our ketamine clinics. There are recliners because you need to be in a reclined position when you do the inhalation. The veteran comes in, checks in with nursing and the doctors. They are given the device to administer. They self-administer with the nurse and doctor there watching, and then they rest and are monitored blood pressure and pulse ox for about 2 hours afterwards, which is part of the requirement by FDA to monitor people for 2 hours afterwards, and rest and then talk with the team after and then head home. And so again, they're there for about maybe 2.5 hours for an S-ketamine treatment.
So we're still in the experimental stage with these two?
No, this is clinical practice, sir. Both of those are FDA-approved medications. S-ketamine is specifically FDA-approved for the indication and treatment of treatment-resistant depression. Ketamine is an anesthetic agent that is being used off-label, but it's an FDA-approved medication that's been used since the 1950s, I believe. Results are good. Results are quite good for many people. It doesn't work for everyone. It's not a magic bullet, but the data looks good for those for whom it helps. It can help quite a bit.
Side effects?
Side effects are feeling drowsy, feeling a sense of dissociation, which is sort of a little bit like leaving your body or having distorted perceptions for a period of time while the infusion is running for ketamine, or while shortly after the inhalation of the intranasal treatment with S-ketamine. We can see a short-term increase in blood pressure that usually then goes away within 20 to 40 minutes, and sometimes nausea and occasionally vomiting. Those are the common side effects.
Availability?
So we have ketamine and S-ketamine, one or both, available at about 49, 50 sites around the country right now.
Good. So you're seeing good results?
We're seeing good results.
Ms. Smith, you'd like to add anything to that?
No, sir.
Yeah, she covered
She
it quite
covered
well.
it.
Good. All right, transcranial magnetic stimulation therapy.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Yes. So we have a TMS at 62 facilities around the country right now. It is also indicated for FDA indicated and approved for treatment of depression that has failed at least 2 trials of oral medications. And it is a special TMS machine that has a chair and then a device that comes down over the head that delivers magnetic stimulation through probes. You come and you sit down in the chair and receive your treatment, and then go home. The treatment course is every day for a period of time, which is a little bit different and more intensive in terms of coming into the clinic than with the ketamine or S-ketamine, where we do twice a week for a couple of weeks, and then we aim to do every couple of weeks, once a month. So the TMS is a course of treatment over a course of daily for a couple of weeks.
So it's not abrasive?
It is not abrasive, no. It sometimes causes headaches, but for the most part is generally very well tolerated.
It's working?
And it is working.
Yeah. How many places do we have this?
62, sir.
62?
Yes.
I wonder if we have those in Alabama. Do you know?
I can get you an answer, but I'll have to check and get back to you to confirm which of these we have and where nearest by we have them in relation to Alabama.
How new is this?
TMS has been around for quite a while. There are innovative types of treatment, kind of the protocol so there's innovations happening in the protocol that make it more rapid, so kind of condensing the number of treatments so that you do a whole lot in 1 or 2 days rather than every day for weeks. The evidence is still growing on those to see if those are more effective or as effective as the standard protocol that we use today. But this treatment has been around for quite some time.
That's awesome. All right, I'm sure you're monitoring the Compass Pathways Comp 360.
Yes.
Again, there's another drug there. What is it called? PSILOC. How you pronounce that?
Psilocybin.
Okay. Assisted therapy, as it's going through FDA trials. How's that going?
I will defer to my colleague, Dr. Levine, to speak more about that on panel 2, specifically
Okay.
about the Compass work.
All right.
But I will say that VA has been partnering with Compass and other of the private sector companies who are working in the psychedelic space, so that we can, and we're meeting with them regularly to be updated on how their progress is going.
Good, good. Besides approving new therapies, how can we use the programs like the Fox Suicide Prevention Grants to help our veterans who are struggling with mental health?
Thank you for that question, sir. One of the great things about the Fox Grants program is that it's meeting veterans in the community where they are in ways that often we don't, with VA, properly engage with those folks. And one of, I think, at least from where I'm sitting, I think one of the most important missions we have right now is engaging the veterans who don't already come through our doors. And getting them to engage in services that will help them with mental health, substance use, or suicidal ideation and problems that they're having. So the Fox Grants helps extend beyond us and beyond our walls to access and ensure that veterans are getting help they need.
So let's talk about something that I've been trying to push through the VA for 5 years is hyperbaric chambers.
Mm-hmm.
They're obviously expensive.
Yep.
A lot of the VAs don't have them, don't want to spend the money on them, but no matter what it costs, we've got to take care of our veterans. And, you know, this bill that I presented, you have to go through 2 other therapies before you're able to use the hyperbaric. Now, you can use them either in the VA or out of the VA. We've got to find, you know, some alternative way to help some of these people that some drugs don't help or other therapies. So what's your thoughts on HBOT?
Thank you, sir, for the question. So in regards to hyperbaric oxygen treatment, it is FDA approved and authorized for use in a variety of different medical conditions. It has not been authorized for use as treatment for PTSD or TBI. It also is not covered and reimbursed by CMS and most private insurance as treatment for PTSD or TBI. Our review of the evidence available, and as stated in our VA DoD clinical practice guidelines, we don't find there to be sufficient evidence to support it as an evidence-based treatment. And given, as you mentioned, the expense, but also how intensive the HBOT treatment is, and based on some of our experiences with the clinical pilot program we ran back in 2018 to 2021 for the Hannon Act Section 702, we have determined that the feasibility of kind of using this clinically, given the lack of evidence at this time that suggests it is more beneficial than other existing treatment options we have available. That's the rationale we have for not offering it as a clinical service at this time.
Are we doing studies on HBOT?
So I'll defer to Dr. Smith to speak to this data research currently.
So currently, Senator, we are not doing any studies on HBOT. The reason being that none of our principal investigators in the field or researchers out there at our 102 sites, none of them have chosen to submit a proposal to us for HBOT research.
Good. Well, you know, I bring this up because of my experience of coaching. Over the years, a lot of the different schools that I coached at, we had hyperbaric chambers that kids with concussions, we felt like it helped. It enhanced, cleared their mind to some point. I think my wife caught on to it a little bit. She actually even bought me one. I don't know what that says, but I get in one at least twice a week. You know, it's an hour. It's pressure. It's not pressure going up. It's like pressure going 100 feet under the water, and you breathe straight oxygen. Now, I can't tell you whether it's helped me or not, but I do know that we hear quite a few people that do it on their own that it's helped. So hopefully in the future we can bypass some of the red tape and at least try it. Some therapies that are not working on some veterans, hopefully it can help in that area. So earlier this year, Secretary Collins made statements on social media that his administration was looking into, you know, alternative therapies. Do you know if that's an accurate statement? Is he, or are y'all getting feedback down from the top level that we're looking into different therapies like HBOT?
We're committed to continuing what we have been doing for many years, which is researching and reviewing research from outside on all of these innovative treatments for mental health.
Again, anything that would help, anything. So on our next panel, we'll have Dr. Jim Wright testify on the efficiency of HBOT. To date, we've had 12,000 veterans with TBI or PTSD. They have received HBOT treatments with near universal improvement, with depression scores being reduced by at least 39%. So is that a good number? You'd think if you're doing a therapy and you've got 39% increase in help, your just thoughts and your experience.
So I'd be happy to take a look at the studies referencing that number to better understand what that means. But in context, I'm happy to hear that there are veterans that are experiencing improvement in symptoms. And so anything that's helping folks, I agree, is a good thing. But before I commit resources and put a lot of energy and emphasis into things at a system-wide level, I need to see more convincing and rigorous scientific data.
So how often does the VA update its evidence-based therapy and complementary and integrative health list, and can it keep pace with, you know, all the emerging effective treatments?
So that's a great question. So our clinical practice guidelines are on average about every 5 years reviewed and updated, but in the intervening period between, we can implement change in our system and the care that we provide. And the perfect example of that is ketamine and S-ketamine. So we actually, it wasn't until the 2022 clinical practice guideline that they became recommended treatments for treatment-resistant depression, but we were deploying and implementing that starting in 2019 because the FDA approved S-ketamine and we had the scientific evidence that these were safe and effective treatments. So we actually started deploying it, and then the CPG caught up after. So the CPG doesn't stop us from doing something clinically if the evidence has been gathered that supports its use clinically.
Thank you. In your testimony, you mentioned that the HALT Fentanyl Act gave private non-governmental entities the ability to expand their controlled Schedule 1 and Number 2 research protocols. Can you provide additional details on what this means to the VA and ongoing efforts of researching on controlled substances?
So that more applies to folks outside the VA and the research that they do, which of course we monitor and follow, and that helps inform what we know about our veteran population, and it is kind of adjacent to and in addition to the work that we're hoping to do and that we have ongoing at our VA facilities currently.
So I believe there's a common misconception that these substances, if approved for treatments for veterans with PTSD or other mental health conditions, will be able to self-medicate. Could you please address this misconception and provide details about these treatments and how they may entail the VA in the future if approved for treatment?
So if any of the psychedelic substances are approved in the future, I anticipate that they would be approved with what's called a REMS program, a risk evaluation mitigation system program that FDA puts in place for high-risk medications when they approve them. And that REMS, I would assume, would want this to be administered in a medical setting. So this is not going to be a take-home medication. These are going to be medications administered like ketamine and S-ketamine in a clinic at one of our facilities in some future state, should they be approved.
So I have people veterans come to my office quite often and said, Coach, I've gone to another country and a certain drug has helped. What advice would you give to that veteran, and can they pass that along, and do we look into that? What's the process on that?
So thank you for asking about that. I know, and I have heard and spoken with veterans as well who have gone elsewhere to take these medications. I caution my own veterans that I see in clinic from using psychedelic substances on their own. And I would caution any other veterans from.
Would you suggest that?
I would not personally suggest that. I would ask them to look for a clinical trial nearby and engage in using one of these substances in a way that allows for rigorous monitoring and safety insurances.
So if they've gone through something like this, what would you tell them to, who do they see in our country to pass this information along, whether it helped or didn't help? Who do they go to?
So I appreciate that many veterans have had these experiences and that they have had profound positive impacts on them. So I want to make sure that that is clear. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate that many of those veterans are sharing those stories with us so that we can learn and hear about it. One thing I do want to say is that veterans can feel comfortable to speak with their own providers if you're coming to the VA about this type of experience, because it helps us understand, helps your provider understand where you're at and what you've experienced and what you've been through. So I would just encourage veterans to make sure that their healthcare providers know about things like this so that they can help make good shared decisions about next steps with their treatment based on what they've tried in the past. Yeah.
So how can you help us back in Congress balance innovation and safety? What advice would you give to myself and my colleagues on the VA committee, direction we go in terms of balancing, you know, all the new innovation is coming in, how we make sure it's safe? What would you tell us as a group?
I would say that we need to continue to study in a safe way so that we can ensure the safety of something before we implement using something clinically. So continued support for research of innovative mental health treatments is what I would suggest is what we need your help with.
Yeah. We're about done here with this group, so any comments that you would like to make to this group and to our audience that's going to watch on closed circuit? How do we help our veterans? What do we do? What new directions do we need to take? How do we save these 18 lives that are being taken a day in our country?
I would say that if there are any veterans out there who are in crisis, to reach out to friends, to family, to people who you trust. Pick up a phone and call 988 and press 1 for the Veterans Crisis Line. Go to your local VA. Go to someone that you trust and let them know that you're having trouble and you need help. And the VA is here to help you.
Thank you. And the number one thing that I hear is to tell somebody you're close to your problem. Don't keep it to yourself. It's really sad, the point we've gotten to, but I think help is on the way. I think we're working on it more. We're putting more money. If money could solve this problem, it had already been solved. But money's not going to solve this problem. People are going to solve this problem, and we've all got to work on it together. So, thanks for both of you for coming from so far away, coming here and being part of this. Again, psychedelics, HBOTs, anything that we can do to help our veterans, we want to do. And again, it's not about money; it's about people. And we're going to continue to work on it. Again, we have 400,000, and just in this state alone, the hundreds and hundreds of thousands and millions of veterans are looking for answers, and we need to get those answers for them. So thanks, both of you. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming this far away, and hopefully we can continue this dialogue in the future. Give them a hand. Thank you all. Thank you. So now we'll set up our second panel. If y'all will start moving up, and we'll set up here and good time.
Yep, we're good on time.
All right, we'll start. And again, we have 4 instead of 2. We've got a little bit longer introduction. But again, we're here for a reason. And so we want to make sure we do this right. Our next panel of witnesses will cover a wide variety of perspectives on alternative therapies for our veterans. Excuse me. We'll hear from Compass Pathways, a biotechnology company with a
Psilocybin.
there you go. It's going to be one of those hearings.
I got you.
Therapy going through FDA approval. I don't know where y'all come up with these names. I really don't. 2 veterans who will share their lived experience with alternative therapies and their work to get our heroes access to them. And lastly, a professor and a former trauma surgeon who has conducted cutting-edge research on HBOT and PTSD, TBI for our veterans. This panel will help set the record straight on what alternative therapies look like in practice. We will use this time to separate fact from fiction, whether that be on psychedelic-assisted therapy, HBOT, or even peer-to-peer mentoring. Our veterans who are already suffering from mental health conditions connected to their time in service should not have to risk their lives and well-being overseas just to receive an alternative form of treatment. Veterans should also be able to safely access these evidence-based alternative treatments here in the United States within the guardrails of the law. The American people and our veterans deserve to know the facts. I look forward to working with each and every one of you here to get our veterans access to life-saving and life-changing alternative treatments for their mental health. So, see if we can make some progress here. We'll have 5 minutes opening statements, but I'd like to start and introduce each one before we start those. Dr. Steve Levine. Doctor, thanks for being here today. Currently serves as the Chief Patient Officer for Compass Pathways. Dr. Levine is a board-certified psychiatrist that has spent his career working across the healthcare system to improve people's lives through creating access to innovation. He completed internship and residency in psychiatry at New York Presbyterian Hospital, Weill Cornell Medical Center. He then completed fellowship subspecialty training in psychomagnetic medicine, psycho-oncology at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York, Presbyterian Hospital, before coming to Compass. He founded Actify Neurotherapies that built new models of care delivery across the U.S. for interventional psychiatry treatments. Dr. Levine has been published extensively in both peer-reviewed journals and lay audiences around the world. He has served in leadership roles for professional societies and not-for-profit entities and received numerous awards for leadership and service. Dr. Levine, thanks for being here, and I hope I didn't hack that up too bad.
Thank you, sir.
Adam Marr, introduced one of my constituents here. Adam, based in Slocum, Alabama. Adam is Director of Operations for the Veteran Mental Health Leadership Coalition. The Veteran Mental Health Leadership Coalition is a national coalition of individuals and organizations united by their mission to prevent suicide, drive innovation, and reshape the future of mental health care veterans and their families. Adam is a U.S. Army veteran. Thanks for your service, where he served as an Army captain and an AH-64 Apache pilot with deployment to Iraq. He also co-founded the Warriors Angels Foundation with his older brother Andrew, a decorated Green Beret who suffered from combat-related brain trauma, to give veterans access innovative treatments for TBI. Adam is also the national co-host for the American Legion's national podcast, Tango Alpha Lima. Today he is accompanied in the audience by his wife of 16 years, Elisa, their children Amelia, Austin, and Aria Marr, his mother Shirley Marr, and in-laws Kenny and Sheila Austin. You got a large group here. I'm glad we got a big enough arena. Thanks for being here, Adam. Dr. Jim Wright, our next witness, another one of my constituents of Vestavia Hills, Alabama. Dr. Wright is an adjunct Assistant Clinical Professor at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, Dr. Wright held the rank of Colonel and served for 28 years in the United States Air Force. Thank you for your service. He held several roles in the Air Force, including plastic surgeon at Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines, chief plastic surgery at Wilford Hall Medical Center, and chief of hyperbaric medicine research at Brooks Air Force Base and special tactic surgeon. Dr. Wright completed a fellowship in undersea and hyperbaric medicine at the United States Air Force School of Aerospace Medicine in 2007, along with Dr. Eddie Zant. Dr. Wright initiated HBOT for active duty military. He was also a principal investigator for the National Brain Injury Rescue and Rehabilitation Study, which used HBOT for TBI and PTSD. And after his years of service, Dr. Wright became a hyperbaric and wounded care physician in Washington State before coming to Alabama to work as a burn trauma surgeon. Thanks for being here, Dr. Wright. And then Brian Schaefer, our fourth and final witness. Brian is a United States Air Force veteran. Thank you for your service. And a founder of Side-Die. Brian is a former U.S. Air Force Tactical Air Control Party member and served in both Afghanistan and Iraq. In 2008, during his pre-deployment training exercise in California, Brian's life was forever changed. After recovering from his injuries in spinal fusion surgery, Brian made the commitment to redefine his recovery. He has since become an advocate for innovative therapies for veterans and others with spinal cord injuries, TBI, and neurological conditions by founding his organization, Sky-Die. I am thrilled to have each one of you here today to share your experiences in alternative therapies, and I welcome each of you to give your opening statement. Dr. Levine.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Tuberville, all present, thank you for the chance to testify at this important field hearing today. Improving the mental health of veterans is a national imperative, and we appreciate your leadership to achieve this goal. My name is Dr. Steve Levine. I'm a psychiatrist, and I serve as the Chief Patient Officer for Compass Pathways. Compass is a biotechnology company dedicated to accelerating patient access to evidence-based innovation in mental health. Our lead compound, COMP360, is a synthetic pharmaceutical-grade form of psilocybin being studied in robust clinical trials in treatment-resistant depression and post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. COMP360 was granted FDA Breakthrough Therapy designation for TRD in 2018 and will potentially be a first-in-class treatment. Compass is leading the way in psychedelic clinical trial research and is conducting the largest ever FDA-regulated clinical trials studying the safety and efficacy of psilocybin. We have already generated positive primary endpoint data in 2 large, well-controlled clinical trials of a single administration of psilocybin, just one administration, in a supervised medical setting. In May 2022, the positive results of our 233-participant phase 2 trial were published in the New England Journal of Medicine. And in June 2025, just 2 months ago, we announced the successful achievement of the primary endpoint for 258 participants in the first of 2 ongoing phase 3 trials. Our second phase 3 trial will enroll approximately 568 additional participants. In addition to TRD, in May 2024, Compass announced positive top-line results from a phase 2 study in PTSD, which showed COMP360 was well tolerated, with both rapid and durable improvement in symptoms from baseline observed following a single administration. Compass is currently finalizing plans to begin a late-stage trial in PTSD. The United States is in a mental health crisis, with 1 in 5 adults experiencing mental illness in any given year. Among the most pressing and debilitating conditions within this crisis are PTSD, affecting 13 million Americans, and TRD in about 3 million. Both conditions are marked by severe symptoms, high suicide risk, and limited medication treatment options. Amid a national mental health emergency where anywhere from 17 to 44 veterans die by suicide each day, we must urgently explore and advance novel treatments to help patients struggling with depression, PTSD, and other serious mental health conditions. Well-controlled clinical studies of the safety and efficacy of innovative treatments like psychedelics are currently underway. That is why it's essential to set standards like those available through the FDA framework to facilitate the safe, effective, and efficient delivery of these treatments to veterans in need. Compass shares the committee's goals to ensure that our nation's veterans can access appropriate care and treatments. We commend the VA for its openness to new treatment options and for the significant research it has performed related to psychedelics. While these compounds are still being studied for potential review by the FDA, we encourage the VA to prepare for the possible entry of psychedelic therapies into the VA health system so that it is ready should these treatments be approved. We recommend that the VA begin by developing treatment protocols, training personnel, and preparing clinical care settings. Compass is committed to partnering with the VA to ensure that sites have the required infrastructure and training in place for successful implementation, as we have begun to do in regular meetings with the VA's integrated project team. Our shared goal must be to ensure that safe, effective medications for the treatment of depression and PTSD are accessible to veterans as soon as possible. In closing, possible FDA approval for certain psychedelic compounds is on the horizon, as there are several ongoing late-stage clinical trials. FDA-approved psychedelics enhance patient safety by ensuring that these drugs have been proven to be safe and effective for specified conditions and patient populations, and that they are prescribed by licensed and trained healthcare professionals for the appropriate patient at the appropriate dose. Again, we thank the committee and Senator Tuberville for holding this important hearing, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Adam.
Senator Tuberville, thank you for the honor of sharing my American veteran story at this field hearing today and for your bold leadership helping to elevate this conversation. My full written testimony has been submitted for the record. Today I'll focus on the essentials, but before I begin, I do want to recognize my family and friends and colleagues here today, and I'm going to dedicate these remarks to my late father, Woody Marr. He went home to be with the Lord this year. He loved his wife and his 4 sons, who all served. He and Mother prayed every day that we would return from our deployments, and we did. We just didn't know that that's when the real battle was going to begin. My older brother, Andrew, an SF Green Beret, came home with TBI and PTSD. The system's answer, 13 symptom-masking medications, and they told him, this is your new normal. My younger brother, Austin, an infantry sergeant with 2 combat tours, medically separated, spiraled into depression, placed on SSRIs, and one night I found him unresponsive after a suicide attempt in the park in our hometown. Me, the Apache helicopter pilot, middle brother, well, sir, I brought all my soldiers home, but I watched my own brothers collapse, all while I tried to figure out how to pull out of my own nose-low dive. You see, sir, this isn't just our story. Unfortunately, it's become an American veteran story. But veterans aren't broken, though. Parts of the system are. For decades, care has numbed instead of healed. Pills, brief therapy sessions, and labels that never address the root cause of trauma. In the past 20 years alone, we've lost more veterans to suicide and overdose than in Iraq and Afghanistan and Vietnam combined. Out of desperation, veterans began building something different, emerging therapies delivered with rigorous care models and veteran-led support. Andrew found hope initially through neurohormone replacement and anti-inflammatory protocols with Dr. Mark Gordon of Millennium Health Centers. Austin and I had different injuries. We required different therapies. After Austin's suicide attempt, he sought psychedelic-assisted therapy with 5-MeO-DMT from Dr. Martine Polanco through the Mission Within. My own journey with Ibogaine became one of the single most transformative experiences of my entire life, reconnecting me to my purpose, my faith in Jesus Christ, and my call to serve. These treatments do, however, carry risks and require medical oversight. For us, though, for my brothers, for my family, they were life-saving. But what happens on the other side of these therapies when proper integration and community support is applied? What happens when veterans begin to become whole again? I'll tell you, sir, they stand back up to serve, and they help those still struggling, because that's what we were trained to do. That's what my brother and I did. We created Warrior Angels Foundation in 2015, one of the first global war on terror nonprofits to focus on funding root cause treatments for TBI and PTSD. We helped to change the stigma and culture around being too tough to ask for help. In the years since, a new wave of veteran leaders has stepped forward, creating new nonprofits to meet the urgent need for care. Their focus has been on therapies like psychedelics, neurorestorative care, TMS, HBOT, and whole health approaches, grounded in the strength of peer-led community support, coupled with education and advocacy efforts. Now, since 2022, through the VMHLC, under the leadership of Lieutenant General Martin R. Steele, USMC retired, we've united 50 plus of these organizations. 50 plus of these organizations exist, sir, each represented by veterans, families, clinicians, and researchers on the front lines of these innovative programs and care models. All this so we can collectively educate and advocate for these approaches. Meanwhile, nearly every major psychedelic, from MDMA to psilocybin to ibogaine to 5-MeO, is in FDA trials. 6 of them have earned breakthrough therapy status from the FDA. But until last year, the VA, with nearly $1 billion research budget, has only committed $1.5 million to a single trial, acknowledging that that has since changed. But just like the representatives said up here before, that's the greatest challenging they're facing. Change. That must change. We must invest in research, expand access, and do so expeditiously. We are requesting from Congress, simply put, sir, partnership. Partnership to fund research and pilot programs at scale, to support and fund community-based veteran services, to prepare for FDA approval by training clinicians and building the infrastructure now. Veterans didn't wait for the system to save us, Senator. We couldn't. We had to build what was needed, because this is about moving from suffering to solutions, about healing veterans and families, and about those in service being able to return to service. Now it's time for the VA and the federal government to continue to step up and support in a large way to bring these solutions home. My father's prayers were answered when his sons came back from war. However, too many families are still praying for their loved ones to come home, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and morally. It's time their prayers are answered. It's time for partnership, sir. Thank you, Senator Tuberville. May God bless you. May God bless our nation. And may God bless the veterans and families who fought for our freedoms. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Well said. You might need to run for politics. Dr. Wright?
Thank you, Senator. And thank you for allowing me to give some information on hyperbaric oxygen treatment for neurologic injuries in veterans. Hyperbaric oxygen is the delivery of 100% oxygen to a person in a pressurized chamber and is used as a treatment for certain diseases and conditions. Oxygen levels 7 to 14 times that achieved by breathing room air are possible. The therapy affects more than 8,100 known human genes and thousands of cellular processes, and is effective in treating a variety of conditions from neurologic injury to chronic wounds. Hyperbaric oxygen has been used as a treatment for brain and nerve injuries for 89 years, since it was first described by Dr. Albert Benke in the U.S. Navy for the treatment of the brain and spinal cord injuries in decompression sickness. Since then, it has been used for a variety of brain and nerve injuries in addition to decompression sickness, such as carbon monoxide poisoning, stroke, post-concussion syndrome, traumatic brain injury, PTSD, depression, chronic pain syndromes, post-COVID illness, and narcotic addiction recovery. It is useful to think of the actions of hyperbaric oxygen as occurring in 4 ways in brain and nerve injury. 1, it provides oxygen to the damaged areas of the brain and spinal cord which don't have enough oxygen to function or heal. 2, it promotes the synthesis of growth factors which cause the ingrowth of new blood vessels and allow nerve axons to reconnect and damaged tissue to heal. 3, it's a potent suppressor of inflammation, which is a component of TBI, PTSD, depression, anxiety, chronic pain, and other neurologic disorders. And 4, it acts directly on nerve cells in the brain and spinal cord to enhance function and suppress pain. In treating TBI and PTSD, hyperbaric oxygen has had remarkable results over the past 20 years. It is universally effective. Few, if any, recipients fail to improve, and many are made completely well from debilitating injuries. Brain function and cognition is improved, even after decades of TBI or PTSD. Depression scores are reduced by 39%, and suicidal ideation is usually abolished. Quality of life and everyday function is improved. Medication requirements are reduced, and chronic pain is also reduced. These results are long-lasting or permanent after a single series of 40 treatments, though some veterans require more treatment depending on the severity and length of illness. To date, more than 30,000 individuals with TBI and PTSD have received hyperbaric oxygen treatment in the United States, 40,000 in Israel, and with nearly universal improvement. More than 12,000 of these individuals were veterans. Nearly all of these treatments have been provided free to veterans through the generosity of our citizens. Of all these people, we are aware of only 2 suicides in the last 15 years. That is a remarkable achievement. The use of hyperbaric oxygen treatment for spinal cord injuries is in its infancy in the United States, but results so far have shown the similar benefits as in TBI or PTSD, as well as the halting of functional deterioration and the improvement in function in a few cases, especially early after injury. As a solution, I propose that hyperbaric oxygen treatment be made immediately available to our veterans with TBI, PTSD, and spinal cord injuries. The huge quantity of case reports, as well as numerous randomized controlled studies, speak to the utility and safety of the treatment, as well as providing more than enough evidence of efficacy for approval as part of the standard of care. It would be well to ensure the established safety protocols are strictly adhered to and that all treatments are directed by properly trained physicians in approved chambers. Additionally, good record keeping would validate the utility of these treatments. Finally, I recommend that a working group be established to design the implementation of this effort.
Thank you, Dr. Wright. Thank you for your research. Very important. Brian, save the best for last down on the end.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you for inviting me to this panel. I'm Brian Schieffer, a former Air Force TACP who served in Afghanistan in 2003, Iraq 05-06, again 06-07. In 2008, during a pre-deployment training exercise in California, my life was forever changed after a Humvee rollover accident left me with severe injuries, including fractures to my spine at 4 different levels, multiple broken vertebrae, broken ribs, broken clavicle, broken sternum, bilateral pneumothorax, torn shoulder ligaments, a skull fracture, and severed the number 6 nerve in my left eye. Stabilized with chest tubes and airlifted to Loma Linda University Polytrauma Center, I then underwent a spinal fusion surgery that took 14 hours, followed by 6 weeks in the ICU, where I was informed that I had less than a 1% chance of ever walking again. While it was not possible to distill in 5 minutes my lived experience during the last 17 years since the accident, I'm able to present those aspects that directly inform why I'm here today. Despite the VA's various strengths and good intentions, the severity of my injuries equally revealed its limitations for veterans with complex injuries. It is my testimony that had I relied only on the standards and care within the VA, I would not be here today. Refusing to accept defeat, I instead became my own advocate, making it my mission to learn everything about my injuries and their impact on my new life. What ensued was a process of trying in many ways, ambiguously benefiting from a range of underutilized therapies and activities that were unavailable, unknown, or actively discouraged within the VA. Through redefining my own recovery, I became committed to advocating for innovative therapies, leading to my co-founding of SIDEI, an organization empowering veterans and others with spinal cord injury, TBI, and other neurological conditions. Despite having only one working eye and one working arm, during my initial hospital-based post-surgical recovery, it was marked by continued work on my bachelor's degree in international relations, as well as my relentless research on how to improve my condition. My recovery continued with 5 months at the La Jolla VA SCI inpatient unit, followed by grueling therapy at the Detroit Medical Center Center for Spinal Cord Injury Recovery. Measurable progress to my lowers was limited in TBI symptoms, cognitive fatigue, vision issues, and emotional strain from my skull fracture, nerve damage, complicated rehab. In a 2009 ceremony, I was medically retired from active service by the PACAF commander, Lieutenant General Utterback. I then relocated to the Florida Panhandle to adapt to paraplegia, tackling challenges like thermoregulation, hand-controlled driving, and daily tasks like grocery shopping and cleaning without the proprioceptive feedback and constant struggle learning to deal with my paralyzed body. In addition, cognitive struggles were persistent. Despite my medical history of a skull fracture and severely compromised lung function in the immediate aftermath of my accident, my cognitive struggles were attributed to my adjustment of paralysis. Then in 2010, prompted by TACP colleagues receiving PTSD and TBI care under Air Force Special Operations Command Protocol in Destin, Florida, I secured a formal TBI diagnosis from the VA. That was nearly 2 years post-accident. With this new diagnosis, I enrolled in a hyperbaric oxygen therapy study under Dr. Eddie Zant at his private clinic in Destin. I experienced immediate improvement in cognition, sleep, memory, and relationships, and no longer waking up in a fog. With over 300 HBOT dives to date, therapeutic benefits include enhanced TBI recovery, tissue healing, and post-surgical outcomes. For years, I traveled to UCLA for surgeries, including shoulder reconstructions and spine procedures. My former TACP teammates who served under me flew in for weeks to carry me post-op, a humbling experience of brotherhood addressing the gaps the VA overlooked during my inpatient stay. My experience with UCLA Operation Men exemplified comprehensive care as specialists collaborated to address my complex symptoms, setting the gold standard for care for veteran health care. VA's care, even for basic needs like wheelchairs, seating cushions, catheters, hand controls, has been problematic at best. Procurement often required me to navigate essentially alone bureaucratic hurdles essential prosthetic devices and general medical care. Over the years, there have been situations that required my persistent attention for weeks, months, and sometimes even years to resolve the issue. I continue to advocate and push for innovative approaches to ensure no one has to endure the hardships and miseries I've faced, pressing for systematic changes to make the VA care more responsive and effective for veterans with complex injuries. Such advocacy includes over a decade of service as a consumer reviewer for the congressionally directed medical research program, evaluating grants in SCI, TBI, orthopedic outcomes, and neurological conditions. This role exposed the critical research gaps, particularly in the underfunded fields of SCI and TBI, with veterans 3 times more likely to suffer an SCI than their civilian counterparts. In 2018, I discovered adaptive scuba diving and working with a small team pioneered techniques tailored to my needs. Underwater is a barrier-free 3D environment. I found liberation, reduced pain, better sleep, and relief from TBI-related cognitive fog, much like HBOT, but with the freedom of floating and movement. I now have nearly 100 scuba dives to date. A final example of how I benefited from an unorthodox therapy is my personal experience with psychedelics. Among the many benefits was an unexpected and remarkable restoration of my sense of connection to my body in the lost sensation areas and proprioception areas that I can no longer feel. I noticed less inflammation in my body, improved cognition, sleep, and a deeper sense of connection and well-being with those around me. This further inspired me to found Side-Eye in 2022, and we filed for nonprofit status in 2025 to make adaptive diving, innovative therapies like HBOT, psychedelics, and non-invasive neuromodulation and ketones accessible to others. Side-Eye bridges medical science, adaptive sports, and cutting-edge technology to empower the 294,000 Americans with SCI, including the 42,000 veterans and 17,730 new cases annually. Our team of medical, academic, and military experts collaborates in skull sessions to explore bold ideas, from standardizing HBOT protocols to researching psychedelics for inflammation reduction using objective measures like cytokines. Driven by a don't talk about it, be about it ethos, Side-Eye partners with institutions like the Lakeshore Foundation and the Alabama Brain Lab, leveraging novel neuromodulation devices like Brain Buds and Elvis as new scalable healing modalities. We continue to pursue grants through CDMRP, ARPA-H, and the DoD that align with our team's interests and skill sets. We've recently spoken at the 2024 and 2025 Aerospace Medical Association meetings, hosting workshops and talks on neuromodulation, vagus and photic nerve stimulation, and psychedelics, sparking vital conversations with pilots, divers, and aerospace and hyperbaric medicine technicians, and thought leaders and other consumers at the concurrent Undersea and Hyperbaric Conference. Although the VA is not currently structured to provide therapies like HBOT or psychedelics, veterans should not have to wait for historically slow, systematic changes. A way forward is partnering with nonprofits like Side-Eye, which have an experience and agility to offer these treatments. For example, voucher systems or VA reimbursement to such organizations would ensure veterans gain timely access to life-changing therapies, bypassing bureaucratic delays. My journey from near-fatal accident to championing for alternative therapies was only possible by accessing these very novel therapies that not only promoted my recovery but allowed me to flourish. My experience underscores the urgent need for these innovative, accessible solutions for inadequately served veterans with complex injuries. I'm here today to share how HBOT, adaptive sports, psychedelics, and non-invasive neuromodulation can transform lives, and urging this committee to support research, funding the policies to bridge these gaps for our nation's heroes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for your service. And God bless you, what you've gone through. Okay, we're here today, and again, we've got video on this, not just for the people here, but hundreds of thousands of veterans will watch this. So I've got a couple dozen questions. Make it short and sweet, but give these veterans something that you know that can help them. Give them advice. Give them an understanding of there's people here to help. And you, as Brian just said, what he's been through, the tough times. So everybody will have questions, but if you've got something that you want to add to somebody, just break in. This is a conversation. Steve, thanks for coming. Thanks for the update on Compass Pathways. I hear a lot of misinformation about psychedelic assisted therapies. I think we all do. Can you walk us through and from start to finish on how these therapies work?
Thank you, Senator. I think the first thing that may come to mind for many people would be kind of the baggage of psychedelics from 1960s counterculture.
Back during my day, yeah.
Yours are the 80s and 90s, right?
Yeah. 2000.
What they may be less informed about is the therapeutic potential of psychedelics, and they may not be aware that there are many trials undergoing, late-stage trials that are moving rapidly towards FDA approval that may create new options in a range of conditions that include PTSD, depression, treatment-resistant depression, which is a difficult-to-treat depression. And what these treatments tend to look like is, as described a bit by Dr. Wiekers earlier, these happen in supervised medical settings. This isn't like an SSRI, a traditional antidepressant, where somebody picks up a prescription at a pharmacy and takes this every day at home and has side effects typically on a daily basis because of it. This is typically one or maybe a few administrations over a longer period of time with the support of a healthcare professional in a supervised setting, having some preparation ahead of time for it, having follow-up afterwards. But what we are seeing so far in conditions like PTSD and depression is that people can have almost immediate reduction in their symptoms, almost immediate relief and a return to life that can have very lasting effects even after just a single administration.
Thank you. So to be clear, all this should be done in a VA, right? Don't be doing it on your own, you know.
Correct, and that is a misunderstanding. People may think that because they've done this on their own at some point that they may know what the effect that this treatment could have on them. But the setting is really important, and being adequately prepared and the safety setting around you being there is critically important. And that is how these medicines are being studied. That's how they will likely be approved.
Yeah.
And that's where we see the best outcomes.
So today's title of this hearing is Separating Fact from Fiction. What's the most misunderstood thing about psychedelics? The most misunderstood?
Yeah, I think it's largely, where I started here about, there's a lot of excitement about psychedelics right now. There's the baggage that's attached historically, but I think people don't recognize that the way that they're being studied right now in rigorously designed clinical trials is very different than someone just taking a psychedelic on their own. Yeah. This is for somebody who's been shown in research to be able to benefit from this treatment, supported by somebody who knows about their condition, who can safely support them. And people may not realize how close we are getting, actually, to potentially having FDA approvals here. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, we are currently running our phase 3 studies. We've already had the results from the first of those phase 3 studies. So things are progressing rapidly. And you said it best earlier, Senator, that we need to move with a sense of urgency here.
Yeah. This is for the whole panel, and we'll start with Adam here. What are the one or two actions that we in Congress could take to address the mental health crisis of veterans or all Americans?
Well, sir, I think it goes back to what I was originally saying, and I think that's partnership. Partnership with Congress, partnership with the VA, partnership with the federal government, because, my whole story is about finding these things out of desperation and being able to still be here to talk about it. Then a nonprofit was started to be able to help get more people access. And then after that happened, then we're coming together to be able to share those stories. That's leading to the recommendations and the policy roadmap that we have submitted in our public record. So I think pathways like Right to Try, which is currently available, and then I also believe that being able to partner with these veteran organizations, the VSOs, from 2015 on, the new Global War on Terror VSOs that have these programs, that are conducting the research, that are submitting it, that are writing the policy reforms and legislation. And sir, we've been developing infrastructure outside of the VA for the last 10 years. So it's a change management problem, and being able to come together, maybe in a joint task force, where those veteran experts that have been doing this, we're consulted on that, and we can help move this along a lot quicker.
Dr. Wright, any advice to Congress?
I'll try to phrase it nicely. But I think the VA needs to take immediate action. We have suicides occurring every day, 6,500 a year. To delay action on these potential therapies because they need more study or we want to set up a research program is ineffective in treating the suffering veterans. We need immediate action, not platitudes, words, or more studies on some of these. Some are ready to go, like hyperbaric oxygen and probably some of the other treatments. They're ready to go. Let's demand that the VA take immediate action.
Yeah, thank you. And before we go to Brian on this, Dr. Wright, I'd like to ask you this. Can you explain the difference between treatment-resistant depression, TRD, and PTSD, and are they often coexisting?
They are often coexisting. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I do know that one component of PTSD and TBI is depression, and these are caused in part by inflammation in the brain, the structural damage that is caused by the concussive events, and there are alterations in structure in PTSD also, so I understand, so that they're all mixed together. And it's no wonder that certain single therapies don't work for everybody, and people fail, and they try another therapy. We need all the tools in the toolbox, not one or two, and it isn't always drug-related, but maybe there are some new drugs which are very helpful, but sometimes we need other therapies in addition to drugs.
Brian, you got anything to add to that?
Yes, I will try to be nice as well. I guess the main thing would be there are individuals and groups in the community already doing this. I think the fastest way to get it to veterans would be to partner with those. Waiting for the bureaucratic red tape of the VA to finally get on board with this is going to take months, probably years. And these treatments are available currently to the public and the civilians, so why can't we get access to the veterans for that?
Good. Good.
And Senator, if I can weigh in as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and if you're asking about the similarities between TRD and PTSD, first, just for the veterans who are watching who may not be familiar with some of these terms and some of the audience, TRD stands for treatment-resistant depression. And what that means is that somebody has a major depressive disorder and they've been failed by at least 2 treatments. So this is a difficult-to-treat depression. And TRD, treatment-resistant depression, and PTSD are like thunder and lightning. They're 2 different things, but they often travel together. So the majority of veterans who have treatment-resistant depression also have PTSD. They do have a lot of overlap in terms of the difficulties that arise with having these conditions, like difficulties with mood or sleep or concentration, irritability, risk of suicide. And in fact, veterans who have both TRD and PTSD are twice as likely to attempt suicide.
Just one of you can answer this because we got quite a few questions to go through here. What's the biggest misconception about therapies that you'd like to correct today? Anybody?
I would just say, with respect to psychedelics, there's a misconception out there sometimes that these are the cure-all, the panacea, that it's kind of one and done, and I just don't think that that's a good way to approach these. Really multiple structured settings. What I mean by that is, I've experienced a powerful psychedelic called Ibogaine only twice, 7 years apart. One time was at the worst time in my life. Another time, I had done a lot of work, a lot of processing of that information, peer support and community to be able to integrate that in. So I needed all that time for the next one to be able to have the effects that it did. So I think looking at these as one and done isn't a great way to do it. But these therapies are producing better and lasting outcomes because they're able to go to the root cause as opposed to masking the symptom.
Dr. Wright, you want to add to that?
Yes, I have some comments about what the VA thinks about hyperbaric oxygen. Their thinking is flawed. The studies that the DOD and the VA did were all flawed. They used hyperbaric air as a sham treatment. Well, we've known since the 1870s that air delivered under pressure is a treatment for lingering neurologic conditions. And guess what? Everybody got better in these studies. In fact, the Air Force later retracted its opinion on the paper. They said, well, the sham treatment got better, hyperbarics got better, it must not be effective. They're both effective, and they retracted what they said. So that study has been retracted by the Air Force. The only outlying study was done by the Navy, and they reported no objective findings in 24 Marines who, if they said they got better, this is all subjective, they would lose their VA benefits. And nobody does a hyperbaric study with just objective TBI findings. That's an inappropriate study. And then they also did some eye movement reports. Well, these are elite athletes, and they are elite Marines with marksmanship skills that are beyond the public, and so their eye movement scores are going to be in the 95th, 96th percentile to start with. So to ask them to improve that with hyperbarics is very difficult. So they're outlying, they picked the wrong measurement. So those studies are flawed. Since then, we've had 13 other studies which show that it works. Everybody gets it to work except the VA and DOD. It doesn't matter what country, Israel, China, and the United States, and thousands of people have improved. There have been no seizures, by the way. It's a safe and effective treatment.
Thank you. Brian, let's talk about regulatory real quick. As founder of the Skydive, you're working daily to get veterans access to therapies like HBOT or SCUBA, and alongside other alternative treatments. What's some of the biggest regulatory hurdles that you face helping get veterans across the finish line?
A lot of it, from what I've found over the years, is education. People only know what they know, and I've spent probably 90% of my time just educating folks on what these therapies are, what they can do, and really from that, it comes into community involvement. We've got a great community partner down in Destin for diving. Dr. Zand has been a great help for HBOT and treating so many veterans over the year, pretty much off of his own dime. I think the big thing is, once again, regulatory hurdles in dealing with the VA, and how do we get through the red tape and get folks these treatments. I've had folks that have gone down to Mexico to receive the Ibogaine treatment and were told from their VA provider they were going to lose their benefits if they went. And these were folks that were taking 2 shoeboxes full of medications, came back, and they're taking nothing.
What advice do you give them on that
What's that?
when they go south of the border?
I think everybody has a need, and if the needs aren't being addressed here in the States, I would encourage them to go find what can work best for them. Everybody's physiological makeup is completely different, and everybody's going to react differently to these therapies based on their environment, past histories, traumas, things like that. So I think the big thing right now is just access, giving access to veterans to allow them to go where they want to go, where they don't have to fall into the VA catchment, is going to be huge. Having community resources available to them locally, yeah, and I think that's going to be the biggest hurdle right now, is just education. Like Adam said, is not only are psychedelics great, but there's a misconception that it's the one and done. No, that's just the beginning of the work, and it's the integration afterwards and that longitudinal study that we really need to keep a track on to really make sure that we're helping these guys and girls.
Sir, I'd just like to add on to that with what we recommend when folks go down to Mexico to experience these, because last November I had the opportunity to advise setting up a veterans program in Mexico at one of these clinics. The program's called Beyond Service. It's a 9-week best-in-class program. This is what we've learned along the way because of what we've had to tell people to go down and prepare. So it's 4 weeks of preparation calls in a group of 5 because we train together in groups. So it's very familiar to us. When we do that, you're down there for 8 days on site at this clinic. You're there with medical support and intake, 9 ER doctors, emergency care nurses, therapeutic staff, and then a culinary that's making sure that you're eating the right things to put into your body. And then there's an environment where you can have this experience, where you're prepared, where you're there with your peers. And then on the other side of that, we don't rush you back into your environment at home. So you have time to be able to start to come back into your body from the effects of this medicine. And then on the other side, we don't abandon you. It's 4 weeks of integration coaching calls. And then when you say peer support and community, that's ongoing for a lifetime. But that's familiar to somebody that was in the military, to somebody that was on a sports team. And it's not familiar if you've just been on your own your whole life. And so being able to design programs like this, but we got to design them outside of the United States, sir. Unacceptable. And so, but we've done 10 cohorts in this year alone, 50 veterans, female cohorts, because female veterans experience military sexual trauma, and we've learned to not put males in their cohorts so that they can be able to heal from their wounds. We also have 2 cohorts of veteran spouses, because it's not just about the veteran, it's about the whole family, and it's about being able to support them on the other side.
Good. Steve, what can the VA do to increase the number of available alternative therapy treatments? What can we do?
You know, I think the VA, it's less about how the VA makes new treatments available than I think making them available as quickly as possible once they are. Right? The FDA primarily has the responsibility in protecting the public good to evaluate the risk-benefit profile of potential new treatments. Once that has been proven, then I think there can be no delay in the VA rolling these treatments out and actually getting them to veterans. It's why I applaud the work that the Integrated Project Team is doing at the VA now to start preparations. I think that, you know, one action that could be taken is increased support for that work so that there are the resources available and necessary to make sure that personnel are trained, that the space is set up, that the healthcare providers are trained in these protocols and they're ready. Because the reality is that if right now we know that veterans are not well served for these conditions, if we look at what's in development, the pipeline is what it's called, other than psychedelics and perhaps some of the other treatments we're talking about today, there isn't much. But there are many, many psychedelics in development right now. And even if Compass Pathways isn't successful, I hope we are, but we may not be, the likelihood is that in the near future, there will be 1 or more new psychedelic treatments that are FDA approved. And if the VA waits until an approval to start to get ready, they'll be behind the 8 ball and there'll be undue delays for veterans. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Wright, you've talked about challenges with HBOT. Why is the VA so stubborn about this? Is it cost?
I think that might be part of it. Part of it could be ignorance. We first met with the VA and their chief scientist in 2011, and they brought an FDA staffer, and we were appalled by their ignorance. The FDA staffer said, "Oh, hyperbarics is dangerous. There could be a fire." You know, hyperbaric therapy has been around since 1936, so I don't know. Same problem with the DOD, of which I was part of, and they were just totally against it, and they wanted incontrovertible proof. Well, now we have that proof. They wanted level 1 proof. We have that proof. We have 70,000 people who have been treated successfully. No seizures, no serious side effects, and everybody that we know of got better. And very few, and the 2 suicides, that's all we know about. That's remarkable. I think that's enough evidence to proceed. I don't know why they're so resistant. Maybe they're afraid they don't have enough evidence. They do. I don't know. It's hard for me to figure out. I don't know the answer, Senator.
Yeah. Thank you. Maybe we can figure it out. Brian, I'll start with you. Adam, I want you to answer this one too. Sure. You 2 veterans, you've started your own organizations to get veterans alternative treatments. You have a unique perspective and you face your own unique set of challenges. What challenges have your organization faced in working with the VA or community care providers in getting veterans access to all these therapies? Brian?
We haven't worked with the VA for that reason. It's just
At all?
No, it's just been difficult. And just being a new organization, we haven't really found the need to work with the VA per se. Dealing with veterans is, as you know, a very unique population of individuals, very driven, very motivated to get things done. So what we found is people are going to look for their own alternative therapies outside of the VA, even if the VA is telling them no. And so how can I, as an individual who's gone through my own experiences, tell somebody they don't have a right to treatment or don't have a right to try these different things? And so currently, no, we're not working with the VA for that reason. We're just using veteran outreach, different VSOs, relationships that we have and things like that, and kind of bypassing the VA system. Adam?
It's a similar response, although there's been a little bit more time working in the space. So initially, what were the pathways to be able to do it, especially if you're starting a new VSO? I would compare it to like being an established corporation. If you want to bring a new innovation in, you go out and you acquire the startup, or you have an R&D. I don't know how that exists within the VA. But now, as the Director of Operations for the Veteran Mental Health Leadership Coalition, I can say at the higher levels, like, we're having these type of conversations. But it still comes down to systems reform, systems change, and being able to, like you so eloquently said, sir, what is the balance between innovation and safety? Right now, I don't think there's a good balance. I think it's overly focused on safety for all the reasons that we know medically. There has to be greater emphasis on accelerated innovation.
Brian, you want to add, Steve, you want to add anything to that?
Nothing to add.
Okay. All right. Dr. Wright, for those listening in the room, we might have jumped over this a little bit, but if they're not familiar with HBOT, if veterans watching this today are not familiar with that, can you walk kind of shortly through a process of what they go through, how they would do it, the procedure, and how many therapies they might need to show some kind of progress?
Sure. So hyperbaric oxygen is provided in a hard-sided chamber run by trained personnel directed by a physician. So if you see one of these blow-up spa-type chambers, don't go there. And they'll usually, with those blow-up things, put an oxygen concentrator in it. That's not safe, and it's violating the FDA certification of those chambers. They're only good for air, and they don't go deep enough to provide the type of treatment we want. So you have to find a certified hyperbaric facility that would treat you, and many of these are outside of hospitals. Most hospital chambers won't do it because they won't get paid right now by anybody. But you can find certain privately ones, and the Treat Now Coalition, if you just get on the web, you can find them, and they can direct you to one that might treat you. 13 states have approved treatment with hyperbaric therapy, and especially North Carolina and Kentucky have allotted money for the treatment of their veterans. That should say something to the FDA when the states are stepping forward and providing the treatment the VA is not providing. And if you're in Alabama, unfortunately, we don't have that yet, but we're hoping to do that in the future. But you got to find a certified chamber. You can always call me or another member of this group that works with veterans, and we can direct you to one in your area. And many people, like Dr. Zant, we started the treatment. We treated the military people for free. We didn't tell the Surgeon General. We just did it. Worked. And he's still treating some people for free. His accountant told him, you can't do this forever, but God bless him. And there are many people who do this on their own nickel. So it's a little difficult trying to hook up with a chamber, but it can be done. The other thing I should add is that many of our veterans with PTSD actually also have TBI, but nobody asks them about that. And so they go together. So, and sometimes they'll tell you, I was okay, and then I got concussed. And then things started to go downhill. So getting a proper diagnosis would be helpful. So that's why the physician comes in.
I think that's why my wife bought me one. I ran into a lot of trees at one time with a football helmet, but a lot bigger than me. Very informative. But we're going to take 2 minutes each. On 2 minutes, and just look in the camera and tell the veteran, hey, what do they need to do? I mean, they're in trouble. Take 2 short minutes each, give them your spiel, tell them what you believe in, and we'll end this up. Steve, let's start with you.
Thank you, Senator. Because as you say, speaking directly to the veterans who are watching this right now, I think the most important thing for them to hear is that you can hear from this panel, from this room, from the attention being paid here, that there's a recognition that there are tremendous unmet needs in the treatment of PTSD, in the treatment of depression, that we are currently not meeting the moment right now in caring for our veterans. However, that there are many promising treatments in development, and I hope that that creates some hope, because the most dangerous thing is the loss of hope. And so I think that veterans can look forward to a time, hopefully in the near future, where they don't have to leave the country they served in order to receive these treatments, that they continue to move through the FDA pathway, through regulatory pathways. And we are firmly committed to partnering with the VA, to working with our government, to everyone who is united in this mission to ensure that we do create new options for our veterans, whether that's psilocybin and other psychedelic treatments or other innovation that is so sorely needed.
Thank you. Adam?
Sir, I would say that these are not alternative therapies. These are emerging therapies. These are breakthrough therapies. These are the innovations of our time. So if you're a veteran and you're considering one of these and you're worried about the stigma or things that you've heard in the past, look to your left and right, to a brother. Come to the VMHLC, because we're out front advocating for these things, but we're advocating because we help expand access, because we help document and make sure that we're producing the research outcomes, that we're helping to draft the policy based off what we've learned through going through these, the hardships year after year. We're not starting from scratch. We have 10 years of infrastructure to be able to ensure that training, the processes, the technologies, and the interagency coordination all the way up to the highest councils in the land to make these things happen. So it is happening, and if you want to come there, then we're not going to be able to get you one of those treatments, but one of our 50 partner organizations are. And Senator, that list is going to continue to grow and grow and grow. And so that's what I would recommend. And lastly, I would just thank you for this opportunity, for elevating this beyond alternative into the conventional. And we're ready to partner on this to be able to move forward together, because that's the way it needs to be done, in unity, in ways that we haven't been able to before. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Wright?
I would say if you're a veteran and you're not at the VA getting treated for some reason, maybe if you can find it in your heart to go back there and try, do that. If you don't get satisfaction, write your senator and your congressman and tell them about it. And now, if you want hyperbaric oxygen, my best suggestion is contact the Treat Now Coalition, just like two words struck together. They're on the internet, or one of these other agencies, and they'll put you in contact with a facility that offers treatment to veterans.
Thank you, Dr. Wright. Ron?
I would say you have to be your own best advocate. Nobody knows you and your body and your physical condition, mental state better than you. So understanding that, there are organizations out there that can help and are willing to help, but you have to do your own research and kind of sort that out and kind of sort your way through it. Just because the VA tells you no doesn't mean it's a hard no. There are a lot of alternative therapies that are coming online right now. Everybody has to find what works best for them. What works for me may not work for Dr. Wright, and vice versa. So be willing to try new things, with your own risk factor, and there is hope out there. And I think these alternative therapies are going to provide hope for thousands of veterans and the civilian population.
Thank you. So I don't think people really understand, hopefully they got this from today, that this is a national emergency. This is bad. And we got a lot of problems in this country. This is really bad. And it's getting worse. It's not going to get any better. We're having more and more veterans that we're adding into the VA. I don't think people realize the VA is the largest healthcare system in the world. But sometimes we think that the VA is for the employees. It is not. It is for the veterans. We need to help our veterans. And again, we're in tough times. But tough times are handled by tough people. And so hopefully today's hearing opens some eyes. Again, a lot of people are going to watch this. And we've got to have two great panels, the one at the beginning and the one here. But we're just we're just anxious to see the VA improve. And hopefully that these alternative therapies will help. Just talking about them, visiting about them, understand a little bit more about them. The committee to consider legislation that authorizes the use of alternative therapies like HBOT, I hope they listen. I really do. New treatments are being studied every day, not just to help veterans, but everybody in this country. But we need to stop the damn red tape. The red tape is what gets in the way of the greatest country ever. And for some reason, we continue to add red tape instead of getting things out of the way so we can help people. Our veterans, they put their life on the line, and they deserve a fighting chance. We need to give that to them. Money is not the problem, folks. We spend a lot of money at the VA, a lot of money. These guys can tell you that, but a lot of money is not spent the right way, and we need to put our foot down. So I'd like to include the following items for the record: a statement from HBOT 4 Heroes. I'd like to put that in for the record, and 3 documents from Clinicom, and those will be added to the record. An article by Dr. William Jamie Tyler. I think it would be very, very important. So that will be included for the record. So I'd like to thank both groups today for being here, all of you for being here, showing your interest. Again, folks, our veterans are in trouble. Anything can happen at any time. And hopefully today we can start a process for some of these therapies that we talked about. We educated some people. Not enough people know what's going on. They're living, everybody's busy. Their lives are very busy. We're all busy every day. But there's nothing more important than saving people's lives that have saved the greatest country on the face of the earth, the United States of America. So God bless y'all for what you're doing. God bless our first panel. God bless those of you that came here today. God bless our military people today that are on active duty and our veterans. And God bless our country. This hearing is adjourned. Alan, come on up real quick.
He's coming up.
Just make a quick